Welcome, Wapham crew, guys, gals, ghouls, friends, fiends, foes. Whoever may be listening beyond the Omniverse tonight, secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, April 7th, Monday, April 8th for those of you across the pond and beyond. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, and welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and we are broadcasting live from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight. I'm so glad you can join us for story time. Even though we don't have a guest on Sundays, I really do enjoy story time because otherwise I don't really have time to read, so it's a nice exercise for the mind, I must say. Well, at least for me it is. If you're listening live right now, you may be listening to us on Spreaker.com under We Are Paradox Media, KPNL Radio, which you can find at KPNL Radio at kpnl-db.com, eTalk Radio, which you can find on etalk.tv/radio. I believe our friend Jonathan, I need to get a hold of him and talk to him more about this channel, but he's setting something up for us, so that's pretty awesome. If you like to watch the show, you can check us out on We Are Paradox Media on Facebook, as well as YouTube. If you don't mind, please mosey on over there, subscribe, like any video that you've watched or listened to, and give that little bell a little click. That way, next time we have a show, you'll be made aware and you'll be able to tune in if you feel so inclined. So we got through with our Australian Aboriginal legend book that was called From the Dreamtime. And that was pretty awesome. I really enjoyed that book. But now we're reading Sue Grafton's A is for Killer. And it's been pretty awesome. Last night we had Psychic Chris Garcia on. That was pretty interesting. Oh my goodness, I just opened the front part of this and there's an owl. Ooh, creepy. So many memes behind the owl. And some people say that some alien contact they've had included an owl or even a deer, or could it be called a not deer? I'm not sure. But yeah, I just noticed that. Probably doesn't mean anything, but who knows? You never know. Just check my sound on Spreaker really quick and see how loud the music is. I think I need to bring it down just a smidge. It's a little overzealous there. So we are on page 14. You ready? Here we go. But why not show it to the cops? At least it would give them a fresh avenue. She was already shaking her head. No, ma'am. No way. I'd never in this world turn it over to them. I know better. That's the last we'd ever see of it. I know it sounds paranoid, but I've heard of cases like this. Evidence they don't like disappears into thin air. Get to court and it's mysteriously vanished. Period. End of paragraph. I don't trust police. That's the point. Why trust me? Like, how do you know I'm not in cahoots with them? I have to trust someone. I want to know how she got into this. Blue movie stuff, if it's why she was killed, but I'm not trained. You can't go back in time and figure out what happened. I have no way to do that. She took a deep breath and changed gears. Anyway, I decided if I hired an investigator, that's the person I'd give the tape to. I guess now I have to ask if you're willing to help, because if you're not, I'll have to find someone else. I thought about it briefly. Of course I was interested. I just wasn't sure about my chances of success. An investigation like this is likely to be expensive. Are you prepared for that? I wouldn't have come up if I wasn't. And your husband's in agreement? He's not wild about the idea, but he can see I'm determined. All right, well, let me nose around first before we sign any contracts. I want to make sure I can do you some good. Otherwise, it's a waste of my time and your money. Are you going to talk to the police? We'll have to do that, I said. Maybe unofficially at first. The point is, I need information. And if we can get their cooperation, it will save you some bucks. I understand that, she said, but you have to understand one thing too. I know you feel the police here are competent, and I'm sure that's true, but everybody makes an occasional mistake, and it's just human nature to want to cover it up. I don't want you to decide whether or not you can help on the basis of their attitude. They probably think I'm crazy as a loon. Believe me, I'm capable of making up my own mind about things. I felt a crick in my neck, and I took a look at my watch. Time to wind it up, I thought. I asked for her home address, her home phone, and the number at the coffee shop, making notes on my legal pad. Let me see what I can find out, I said. In the meantime, you can leave that with me. I'd like to get myself up to speed. The meter won't actually start ticking until we have signed contract. She glanced down at the paper sack beside her, but made no move to lift it. I guess so, I suppose. I wouldn't want anybody else to get their hands on the tape. It'd kill Mace and the girls if they knew what was in here. I crossed my heart and held my hand up. I'll guard it with my life, I said. I didn't think there was any point in reminding her that the pornography is a commercial venture. There were probably thousands of copies of the tape in circulation. I tucked the notes in my briefcase and snapped the lid down. She stood up when I did, hefting the bag to one hip before she passed it over to me. Thanks, I said, picking up my jacket and my handbag, setting them on top of the bag, juggling the armload of items as I turned off lights. She followed me across the hall and watched me uneasily as I locked up. I glanced back at her. You're going to have to trust me, you know. Without that, there's no point doing business together. She nodded, and I caught a glimpse of tears in her eyes. I hope you remember Lorna really wasn't like what you see. I'll remember, I said. I'll get back to you as soon as I know anything, and we'll work out a game plan. All right. One more thing. You're going to have to tell Mace about the tape. He doesn't have to see it, but he should know it exists. I want complete honesty among the three of us. All right. Anyway, I've never been good at keeping secrets from him. We parted company in the little 12-car parking lot behind the building, after which I drove home. Once in my neighborhood, I had to circle the block before I snagged a semi-legal spot half a block away. I locked my car and walked to my place, toting the paper sack like a load of groceries. The night was downy and soft. The street was darkened by trees, the bare branches woven overhead in a loose canopy. The few stars that I saw were as bright as ice chips flung across the sky. The ocean rumbled along the winter beach half a block away. I could smell salt like wood smoke on the still night air. Ahead of me, a light glowed in the window of my second-story loft, and I could see the wind-tossed pine boughs tapping at the glass. A man on a bicycle passed me, dressed in dark clothes, moving quickly, the heels of his bicycle shoes marked by strips of reflector tape. He made no sound except for the soft hum of air through his spokes. I found myself staring at him as if he were an apparition. I pushed through the gate, which swung shut behind me with a comforting squeak. When I reached the backyard, I glanced at my landlord's kitchen window automatically, though I knew it would be dark. Henry had gone back to Michigan to see his family and wouldn't return for another couple weeks. I was keeping an eye on his place, bringing in his newspaper and sorting through his mail, sending on anything that seemed critical. As usual, I found myself surprised at how much I missed him. I'd first met Henry Pitts 4 years ago when I was looking for a studio apartment. I'd been raised primarily in trailer parks, where I lived with my maiden aunt after the death of my parents when I was 5 years old. In my 20s, 2 brief marriages did little to promote my sense of permanence. After Aunt Jen's death, I moved back into her rented trailer, retreating into the solace of that compact place. I had by then left Santa Teresa Police Department, and I was working for the man who taught me much of what I know about private investigation. Once I was licensed and had set up an office of my own, I occupied a series of single and double wides in various Santa Teresa trailer parks. The last of these being the Mountain View Mobile Home Estates out in the suburb of Colgate. I probably would have gone on living there indefinitely, except that I'd been evicted along with a number of my neighbors. Several parks in the area, the Mountain View among them, had converted to seniors 55 and older only, and the courts were in the process of reviewing all the discrimination suits that had been filed as a result. I didn't have the patience to wait for an outcome, so I began to make rounds the available studios. Armed with newspaper ads and a map of the city, I drove from one sorry listing to the next. The search was discouraging. Anything in my price range, which ran all the way from very cheap to extremely modest, was either badly located, filthy dirty, or in complete despair. Let's don't even talk about the issues of charm or character. I chanced on Henry's ad posted at the laundromat and checked it out only because I was in the area. I can still remember the day I first parked my VW and pushed my way through Henry's squeaking gate. It was March, and the light rain had vanished or varnished the streets, perfuming the air with the smell of wet grass and narcissus. The flowering cherry trees were in bloom, pink blossoms littering the sidewalk out in front. The studio had been a single-car garage converted into a tiny bachelorette pad, which almost exactly duplicated the kind of quarters that I was used to. From the outside, the place was completely nondescript. The garage had been connected to the main house by means of an open breezeway that Henry had glassed in, most days using the space to proof mammoth batches of bread dough. He's a retired commercial baker and still rises early and bakes almost daily. His kitchen window was open, and the smells of yeast, cinnamon, and simmering spaghetti sauce wafted out across the sill into the mild spring air. Before I knocked and introduced myself, I cupped my hands against the window and peered in at the space. At that time, there was really only one large room 17 feet on a side, with a narrow bump out for a small bath and a galley-style kitchenette. Space has been enlarged now to accommodate the sleeping loft and a second bathroom above. Even then, in its original state, one glance was all it took to know that I was home. Excuse me, that's pretty interesting because that's how I felt when we pulled up to this place. I was like, I'm home. And my husband said, really? Henry had answered the door wearing a white t-shirt and shorts, flip-flops on his feet, a rag tied around his head. His hands were powdered with flour. He had a smudge of white on his forehead. I took in the sight of his narrow, tanned face, his white hair, and his bright blue eyes, wondering if I'd known him in a life before this one. He invited me in, and while we talked, he fed me the first of the countless homemade cinnamon rolls I've consumed in his kitchen since. Apparently, he'd interviewed just about as many applicants as I had landlords. He was looking for a tenant without kids, vile personal habits, or an affinity for loud music. I was looking for a landlord who would mind his own business. I found Henry appealing because, at his 80-some years, I figured I was safe from unwanted attentions. I probably appealed to him because I was such a misanthrope. What is that, misanthrope? I'll have to look that up. I'd spent 2 years as a cop and another 2 years amassing the 4,000 hours required to apply for a private investigator's license. I've been duly photographed, fingerprinted, bonded, and credentialed. Since my principal means of employment involved exposure to the underside of human nature, I tended even then to keep other people at a distance. I have since learned to be polite. I can even appear friendly when it suits my purposes. But I'm not really known for my cute, girlish ways. Being a loner, I'm an ideal neighbor, quiet, reclusive, unobtrusive, and gone a lot. I unlocked my door and flipped on the downstairs light, shed my jacket, turned on the TV, pressed the power button for the VCR, and slid Nora Kepler's video into the machine. I don't see any point in going into excruciating detail about the content of the tape. Suffice it to say, the storyline was simple, and there was no character development. In addition, the acting was atrocious, and there was much simulated sex of a sort more ludicrous than lewd. Maybe it was only my discomfort at the subject that made the whole enterprise seem amateurish. It surprised me to see the credits, which I rewound and read again from the beginning. There was a producer, a director, and an editor whose names sounded real: Joseph Ayers, Morton Castlebaum, and Chester Ellis. I put the tape on hold while I jotted them down, then reactivated the play button and let the tape roll again. I expected the actors to have monikers like Biff Mandate, Cherry Ravish, and Randy Bottoms, but Lorna Kepler was listed, along with 2 others, Russell Turpin and Nancy Dobbs, whose quite ordinary names I made note of in passing. There didn't seem to be a writer, but then I suppose pornographic sex really doesn't require much in the way of scripting. The narrative would make bizarre reading in any event. I wondered where the film had been shot. Given what I imagined to be a pornographic film budget, no one was going to rent the locations or apply for any permits. For the most part, the scenes took place in interiors that could have been anywhere. The lead actor, Russell Turpin, must have been hired solely on the basis of certain personal attributes that he displayed fore and aft. He and Nancy, ostensibly husband and wife, were sprawled naked on their living room couch, exchanging bad dialogue and subjecting each other to various sexual indignities. Nancy was awkward, her gaze straying to a spot at the left of camera, where someone was clearly mouthing the lines she was supposed to say. I've seen elementary school pageants with more talent in evidence. Whatever passion she conjured up looked like something she'd learned from watching the pornographic film clips. The chief gesture being lascivious lip-licking, more likely to cause chapping more than arousal, in my opinion. I suspect she was actually hired because she was the only one who owned a real garter belt in this age of pantyhose. Lorna was the prime focus, and her appearance was staged for maximum effect. She seemed oblivious of the camera, her movements fluid and unhurried, her expertise undisguised. Her looks were elegant, and in the early moments of her role, it was difficult to imagine the misbehaviors that would soon emerge. At first, she was cool and seemed to secretly be amused. Later, she was shameless, controlled, and intense, totally focused on herself and whatever she was feeling. Early in the viewing, I was inclined to fast forward past any scene not involving her, but the effect became comical. The perils of Pauline, with sex parts flapping back and forth. I try to watch with the same detachment I affect at homicide sites, but the mechanism failed and I found myself squirming. I do not take lightly the degradation of human beings, especially when it's done solely for the financial gain of others. I've heard it said that the pornography industry is larger than the record and film industries combined. Staggering sums of money changing hands in the name of sex. At least this video had little violence and no scenes involving children or animals of any kind. It's funny, I was just watching Caleb, aka Oompaville, earlier, and he was talking about a certain YouTuber that is taking in young women and making OnlyFans sites, not really making money off of YouTube, but off of them. So yeah, I think it's like the oldest job around, really. Well, it's been around for a long time. But yeah, now you can watch it on video or even on your cell phone. While there wasn't much of a story to speak of, the director had made an attempt to create suspense. Lorna played a sexually demonic apparition, and as such, stalked both husband and wife, who ran stark naked through the house. She was also sexually abusive to a repairman named Harry, who had shown up in the film during one of the parts I skipped the first time. Often Lorna's appearances were heralded by smoke, and her diaphanous gown was blown skyward by a wind machine. Once the action began, there were many close shots, lovingly detailed by a cameraman with a passion for his zoom lens. I flicked the tape off and rewound it, turning my attention to the packaging. The production company was called Cyrenaic Cinema, with a San Francisco address. Cyrenaic, what did that mean? I pulled my dictionary from the shelf and checked the reference. Cyrenaic, of the Greek school of philosophy founded by Aristippus of Cyrene, who considered individual sensual pleasure the greatest good. Well, someone was literate. I tried directory assistance in the 415 area code. There was no telephone number listed, but the address might be good. Even if Janice and I came to an agreement, I wasn't sure she'd want to fund a trip to San Francisco. I sorted through the files she'd given me, separating out the news clippings from the police reports. I read the autopsy report with particular care, translating the technicalities into my sketchy layman's understanding. The basic facts were about as distressful as the film I'd just seen, without the leavening influence of all the corny dialogue. By the time Lorna's body was discovered, the process of decomposition was virtually complete. Gross examination revealed precious little of significance, as all the soft tissue had collapsed into a greasy mass. Maggots had made hasty work of her. Internal examination confirmed the absence of all organs, with only small amounts of tissue left representing the GI tract, the liver, and the circulatory system. Brain tissue was also completely liquefied and/or absent. Osseous remains showed no evidence of blunt force trauma, no stab or gunshot wounds, no ligature, no crushing of bones or breaking, anything like that. 2 old fractures were noted, but neither apparently pertained to the manner of her death. What laboratory tests could be run showed no drugs or poisons in her system. Complete dental arches were excised and retained along with all 10 fingers. Positive identification was made through dental charts and a residual print from the right thumb. There were no photographs, but I suspected those would be attached to her department file. Post-mortem glossies would hardly have been passed along to her mother. There was no way to pinpoint date or time of death, but a rough estimate was made for several environmental factors. Countless people interviewed testified as to her night owl tendencies. It was also allegedly her habit to jog shortly after she got up. As nearly as the homicide investigators could establish, she'd slept late as usual on that Saturday, April 21st. She then pulled on her sweats and had gone out for a jog. The Saturday morning paper was in, as was the mail that had been delivered late that morning. All the mail and newspapers after the 21st were piled up unopened. Idly, I wondered why she hadn't left for her trip Thursday night as planned. Maybe she had finished out the work for the week on Friday, intending to take off Saturday morning once she was showered and dressed. The questions were obvious, but it was useless to speculate in the absence of concrete evidence. While the cause of death was undetermined, the police had proceeded on the assumption that she'd been struck down by a person or persons unknown. Lorna had lived alone and in singular isolation. If she'd cried out for help, there had been none within range of her. I'm single myself, and though Henry Pitts lives close by, I'm sometimes uneasy. There's a certain vulnerability attached to my work. I've been variously shot, pummeled, punched, and accosted, but I've usually found a way to outmaneuver my attackers. I didn't like the idea of Lorna's final moments. The homicide detective who had done all the grunt work was a guy named Cheney Phillips, whom I ran into from time to time. The last I'd heard, he'd moved from homicide to vice. I'm not really sure how law enforcement agencies in other cities work, but in Santa Teresa, police department officers tend to be rotated every 2 to 3 years, exposing them to a variety of responsibilities. This not only ensures a well-balanced department, but allows the opportunity for advancement without an officer's having to wait for the death or retirement of division-entrenched colleagues. Like many cops in town, Phillips could usually be found in a local watering hole called Cece's, which was frequented by attorneys and a variety of law enforcement types. His supervisor on the case had been Lieutenant Con Dolan, whom I knew very well. I was somewhat skeptical that Lorna's role in a low-budget movie was related to her death. On the other hand, I could see why Janice Kepler wanted to believe as much. What else are you going to think when it turns out your late and favorite daughter was a pornographic film star? I was restless, nearly itchy with an overdose of caffeine. I probably sucked down 8 to 10 cups of coffee during the day, and the last 2 that evening while I was talking to Janice. Now I could feel stimulants like sugar plums dancing in my head. Sometimes anxiety and caffeine have the same effect. I checked my watch again. It was after midnight by now and well past my bedtime. I pulled out the phone book and found the number for Cece's. The call took less than 15 seconds. The bartender told me that Cheney Phillips was on the premises. I gave him my name and had him give Cheney the message that I was on my way. As I hung up the phone, I could hear him yelling to Cheney across the den. I grabbed my jacket and my keys and headed out the door. Chapter 3. I drove east along Cabana, the wide boulevard that parallels the beach. When the moon was full, the darkness was the quality of a film scene shot day for night. The landscape is so highly illuminated that the trees actually cast shadows. Tonight the moon was in its final quarter, rising low in the sky. From the road I couldn't see the ocean, but I could hear the reverberating rumble of the tide rolling in. There was just enough wind to set the palm trees in motion. Shaggy heads just nodding together in some secret communication. A car passed me, going in the opposite direction, but there were no pedestrians in sight. I'm not often out at such an hour, and it was curiously exhilarating. By day, excuse me, Santa Teresa seems like any small Southern California town. Churches and businesses hug the ground against the threat of earthquakes. The roof lines are low, and the architectural influence is largely Spanish. There's something solid and reassuring about all the white adobe and red tile roofs. Lawns are manicured and the shrubs are crisply trimmed. By night, the same features seem dark and dramatic, full of black and white contrasts that lend intensity to hardscape. The sky at night isn't really black at all. It's a soft charcoal gray, nearly chalky with light pollution. The trees like ink stains on a darkened carpet. Even the wind was a different feel to it, as light as a feather quilt against the skin. The real name of Cece's is the Caliente Cafe, a low-rent establishment housed in an abandoned service station near the railroad tracks. The original gasoline pumps and the storage tanks below had been removed years before, and the contaminated soil had been paved over with asphalt. Now, on hot days, the blacktop tends to soften, and a toxic syrup seeps out, the tarry liquid quickly converted into wisps of smoke, suggesting that the tarmac is on the verge of bursting into flame. Winters, the pavement cracks from dry cold, and the sulfurous smell wafts across the parking lot. Cece's is not the kind of place to encourage bare feet. I parked out in front beneath a sizzling red neon sign. Outside, the air smelled like corn tortillas, fried in lard, inside like salsa and recirculated cigarette smoke. I could hear the high-pitched whine of a blender working overtime, whipping ice and tequila into a margarita mix. The Caliente Cafe bills itself as an authentic Mexican cantina, which means the decor consists of Mexican sombreros tacked above the doors. Bad lighting eliminates the need for anything else. Every item on the menu has been Americanized, and all the names are cute. Ensalada, pasta pequeno, linguini bambini. The music, all canned, is usually played way too loud, like a band of mariachis hired to hover at your table while you try to eat. Sorry guys, I have a frog in my throat. Cheney Phillips was sitting at the bar, his face tilted in my direction. My request for an audience had clearly piqued his interest. Cheney was probably in his early 30s, a white guy with a disheveled mop of dark curly hair, dark eyes, good chin, prickly 2-day growth of beard. His was the sort of face you might see in a men's fashion magazine on the society section of the local papers, escorting some debutante, decked out like a bride. He was slim, of medium height, wearing a tobacco brown silk sport coat over a white dress shirt. His pants a pleated cream-colored gabardine. His air of confidence suggested money of intimidating origins. Everything about him said trust fund, private schools, and casual West Coast privilege. This is pure projection on my part, and I have no idea if it's accurate. I've never really asked him how he ended up a cop. For all I know, he's third-generation law enforcement, with all the women in his family doing jail administration. I eased up onto the bar stool next to his. Hello, Cheney. How are you? Thanks for waiting, I really appreciate it. He shrugged. I'm usually here until closing time anyway. Can I buy you a drink? Of course. I'm so wired on coffee, I may never get to sleep. What's your pleasure? Chardonnay, if you please. Absolutely, he said. He smiled, revealing first-rate orthodontic work. No one could have teeth that straight without years of expensive correction. Cheney's manner was habitually seductive, and never more so than in a setting such as this. The bartender had been watching our interchange with an exaggerated late-night patience. In a bar like Cece's, this was the hour when the sexually desperate made their last-minute appeals for company. By then, enough liquor had been consumed that potential partners who earlier had been rejected as unworthy were now being considered. Better put on your beer goggles. The bartender apparently assumed we were negotiating a one-night relationship. Cheney ordered wine for me and another vodka tonic for himself. He checked back over his shoulder, doing a quick visual survey of other patrons. You ought to keep an eye on all the off-duty police officers. Last call, we go out in the parking lot and pass around a breathalyzer, like we're popping a joint, making sure we're still sober enough to drive ourselves home. I heard you left homicide. Right? I've been doing Vice for like 6 months. Well, that suits, I said. Do you like it? He'd probably been moved to Vice because he still looked young enough to have some. Sure, it's great. It's a one-man department. I'm the current expert on gambling, prostitution, drugs, and organized crime, such as it is in Santa Teresa. What about you? What are you up to? You probably didn't come out and down here to chat about my career in law enforcement. He looked up as the bartender approached, halting further conversation until our drinks had been served. When he looked back, I said, Janice Kepler wants to hire me to look into her daughter's death. Good luck, he said. You handled the original investigation, yes? Dolan and me, with a couple more guys thrown in. This is the long and short of it, he said, ticking the items off his fingers. There was no way to determine cause of death. We still aren't absolutely certain what evidence, no witnesses, no motive, no suspects. And no case, I supplied. You got it. Either this was not a homicide to begin with, or the killer led a charmed life. I'll say. You going to do it? Don't know yet. Thought I'd better talk to you first. Have you seen the picture of her? She was beautiful, screwed up but gorgeous. Talk about dark side, my God. Like what? She had this part-time job at the water treatment plant. She's a clerk typist, you know. She does a little phone work, a little filing, maybe 4 hours a day. He tells everybody she's working her way through City College, which is true in its way. Takes a class now and then, but it's only half the story. What she's really up to is a bit of a high-class hooking. She's making $1,500 a pop. We're talking substantial times of money at the time of her death. Who'd she work for? Nobody. She was independent, and she started doing outcall, exotic dance, and massage. Guys found the service listed in the classifieds, and she goes out and does some kind of bump and grind strip while they abuse themselves. The game is you can't make a deal for more than that up front, and cover used to call and pull that till everybody wised up. But once she's on the premises, she can negotiate whatever services her client wants. It's strictly their transaction. For which she gets paid what? Cheney shrugged. Depends on what she does. Straight sex is probably $150, which she ends up splitting with the management. Pretty quick, she figures out she has more on the ball, so she bags the cheap gigs and moves up to big time. Here in town? For the most part, I understand they used to see quite a bit of her in the bar at the Edgewater Hotel. She also cruised through the bubbles in Montebello, which you probably heard was closed down last July. She had a penchant for the places where the high rollers hung out. Did her mother know this? Sure she did, absolutely. Lorna was even picked up once on a misdemeanor for soliciting an undercover vice officer at Bubbles. We didn't want to rub her mother's nose in the fact, but she was certainly informed. Maybe it's just beginning to sink in, I said. Someone sent her a copy of a pornographic film in which Lorna loomed large. Apparently, that's what prompted her to come see me. She thinks Lorna was either blackmailed into it or working undercover. Oh yeah, right, he said. I'm just telling you her assumption. Cheney snorted. She's in denial big time. Have you actually seen this tape? I just saw it tonight. It was pretty raunchy. Yeah, well, I'm not sure how much difference it makes. The kind of stuff she was into, it really doesn't surprise me. How's it supposed to tie in? That's the part I don't get. Janice thinks that Lorna was about to blow the whistle on someone. Oh man, that lady's seen too many bad TV movies. Blow the whistle on who and for what? Those people are legitimate, in some sense of the word. They're probably scumbags, but that's not against the law in this state. Look at all the politicians. That's what I told her. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out if there's enough to warrant my taking on the job. If you guys couldn't come up with anything, how can I? Maybe you'll get lucky. I'm one of life's eternal optimists. Case is still open, but we ain't had jack shit for months. You want to look at the files? It can probably be arranged. That'd be great. What I'd really like to see are the crime scene photographs. I'll try to clear it with Lieutenant Dolan, but I don't think he'll object. You heard he's in the hospital, right? He had a heart attack. I was startled, put a hand on my heart, nearly knocking my glass over in the process. I caught it before it tipped, though a little wave of wine slopped out. Dolan had a heart attack? That's awful. When was this? Yesterday, right after squad meeting, he started having chest pains, like, boom, he's in trouble. Guy looks like shit, and he's short of breath. Next thing I know, he's out like a light. Everybody scrambled around doing CPR. Paramedics pulled him back from the brink, but it was really touch and go. Is he going to be okay? We hope so. He's doing fine last I heard. He's over at St. Terry's in the cardiac care unit. Raising hell, of course. Sounds like him. Try to get over there the first chance I have. He'd like that. You should do it. I talked to him this morning, and the guy's going nuts. Claims he doesn't like to sleep because he's scared he won't wake up. He admitted that? I never knew Lieutenant Dolan to talk about anything personal, I said. He's changed. Like, he's a new man. It's amazing, he said. You ought to see for yourself. He'd be thrilled at the company. Probably talk your ear off. I shifted the subject back to Lorna Kelper. Or Kepler. What about you? Do you have a theory about Lorna's death? Cheney shrugged. I think somebody killed her, if that's what you're asking. Rough trade, jealous boyfriend, maybe some other hooker thought Lorna was treading on her turf. Lorna Kepler loved risk. She's the kind who liked to teeter right on the edge, really. Does she have enemies? Not so far as we know. Oddly enough, people seem to like her a lot. I say oddly because she was different, really unlike other folk. It was almost admiration on their part because she was so out there, you know? She disregarded the rules and covered a lot of ground. I take it your investigation covered a lot of ground? That's right, though it never came to much. Frustrating anyway. It's all there if you want to take a look. I can have Emerald pull the files once we get Dolan's okay. I'd appreciate that. Lorna's mother gave me some stuff, but she didn't have everything. Just let me know, and I'll pop over to the station and take a look. Sure thing. We can talk afterward. Thanks, Cheney. You're a doll. I know that, he said. Just make sure you keep us informed. And play it straight. If you come up with something, we don't want it thrown out of court because you've tainted the evidence. You underestimate me, I said. Now that I'm working out of Lonnie Kingman's office, I'm an angel among women. I'm a paragon. I believe you, he said. His smile was lingering, and his eyes held just a hint of speculation. Thought I'd probably said enough. I backed away, and then turned, giving him a wave as I departed. Once outside, I drank in the quiet of the chill night air, picking up the faint scent of cigarette smoke, trailing back at me from somewhere up ahead. I lifted my head and caught a glimpse of a man easing out of sight around the bend in the road, his footsteps growing faint. There are men who walk at night, shoulders hunched, heads bent in some solitary pursuit. I tend to think of them as harmless, but one never knows. I watched until I was certain he was gone. In the distance, low-lying heavy cloud cover had been pushed up the far side of the mountain and now spilling over the top. All the parking spots are filled. Vehicles gleamed in the harsh overhead illumination, like a high-end used car lot. My vintage VW looked distinctly out of place, a homely pale blue hump among the sleek, low-slung sports models. I unlocked the car door and slid onto the driver's seat, then paused for a moment, hands on the steering wheel while I contemplated my next move. The single glass of white wine had done a little to temper my wired state. I knew if I drove home, I'd just end up lying on my back, staring at the skylight above my bed. I fired up the ignition and then drove along the beach as far as State Street. I hung a right and headed north. I crossed the railroad tracks, jolting the radio to live. I didn't even realize I'd left the damn thing on. It seldom worked these days, but every now and then I could coax something out of it. Sometimes I'd bang on the dash with my fist, drawing forth news or a commercial. Other times, for no apparent reason, I'd pick up a baffling fragment of weather. The problem was probably a loose wire or faulty fuse, which is just a guess on my part. I don't even know if radios have fuses these days. At the moment, the reception was as clear as could be. I pressed a button, neatly switching from AM to FM. I turned the dial by degrees, sliding past station after station, until I caught the strains of a tenor sax. I had no idea who it was, only that the mournful mix of horns was perfect for this hour of the night. The cut came to an end, and a man's voice eased into space. That was Gato Abiri on sax, a tune called Picture in the Rain, from the movie soundtrack Last Tango in Paris. Music was composed by Gato Barbieri, recorded back in 1972, and this is Hector Moreno, here on K-Spell, bringing the magic of jazz on this very early Monday morning. His voice was handsome, resonant, and well-modulated, with an easygoing confidence. This was a man who made his living staying up all night, talking about artists and labels, playing CDs for insomniacs. I pictured a guy in his mid-30s, dark, substantial, possibly with a mustache, his long hair pulled back and secured with a rubber band. He must have enjoyed all the perks of local celebrity status, acting as an MC for various charity events. Radio personalities don't really need even the routine good looks of the average TV anchor person, but he'd still have the name recognition value, probably his share of groupies as well. He was taking call-in requests. I felt my thoughts jump a track. Janice Kepler had mentioned Lorna's hanging out with some DJ in her late-night roamings. I began to scan the deserted street, looking for a payphone. I passed a service station that was shut down for the night. At the near edge of the parking lot, I spotted what must have been one of the last real telephone booths, a regular stand-up model with a bifold door. I pulled in and left the car engine running while I flipped through the notes, looking for the phone number I'd been given for Frankie's coffee shop. I dropped a quarter in the slot and dialed. When a woman at Frankie's coffee shop finally answered the phone, I asked for Janice Kepler. The receiver was clunked down on the counter, and I could hear her name being bellowed. In the background, there was a low-level buzz of activity, probably late-night pick-and-coffee types, taking up on stimulants. Janice must have appeared because I heard her make a remark to someone in passing, the two of them exchanging brief comments before she picked up. She identified herself somewhat warily. I thought maybe she was worried she was getting bad news. "Hello, Janice." Kinsey Milholm, I hope this is all right. I need some information, and it seems simpler to call than to drive all the way up there. Well, my goodness, what are you doing up at this hour? You looked exhausted when I left you in the parking lot. I thought you'd be sound asleep by now. Well, that was my intention, but I never got that far. I was too stoked on coffee, so I thought I might as well get some work done. I had a chat with one of the homicide detectives who worked on Lorna's case. I'm still out and about and thought I might as well cover more ground while I'm at it, so didn't you mention that Lorna used to hang out with a DJ on one of those local FM stations? That's right. Is there any way you can find out who it was? I can try. Hang on. Without covering the receiver, she consulted with one of the other waitresses. Perry, what's the name of that all-night jazz show, that station? K-Spell, I think? I knew that much. Thinking to save time, I said Janice. What about the disc jockey? You know his name? In the background, somewhat muffled, Perry said, Which one? There's a couple. Dishes were clattering, and the speaker system was pumping out versions of Up, Up, and Away with stringed instruments. The one Lorna hung out with. Remember? I told you about him. I cut in on Janice. Hey, Janice. Perry, hold on. What, hon? Could it be Hector Moreno? She let out a little bark of recognition. That's right, that's him. I'm almost sure he's the one. Why don't you call him up and ask if he knew her? I'll do that, I said. You be sure and let me know. And if you're still out running around town after that, come on up and have a cup of coffee on the house. I feel my stomach lurch at the thought of more coffee. The cups I'd consumed were already making my brain vibrate like an out-of-balance washing machine. As soon as she hung up, I depressed the lever and released it, letting the dial tone whine on while I held up the phone book on its chain and flipped through. All the radio stations were listed at the front end of the Ks. As it turned out, KSPL was only 6 or 8 blocks away. Behind me from the car, I could hear the opening bars of the next jazz selection. I found another quarter in the bottom of my handbag and dialed the studio. The phone rang twice. K-Spell, this is Hector Moreno. The tone was businesslike, but it was certainly the man I'd been listening to. Hello, I said. My name is Kinsey Milhone. I'd like to talk to you about Lorna Kepler. Well, on that note, boys and girls, before we get to the next chapter, we do have to go to our first music break. On this break, we have Mr. Jeff Hilliard from Los Angeles, California, with Finger Bang Your Day, Consensual Sex Van, Cock That Hills, Multitude, and Silicone Wave. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
When your life is a never-ending train wreck and you feel like you're drowning in a sea of regret, with a boot of oppression pressing down on your neck, it hurts so bad. When your overwhelming hatred kills your heart's desire and reality starts looking like a dumpster fire, you start bitching to me, but you're preaching to the choir. You don't need to be so mad, 'cause sometimes we hurt, sometimes we cry, sometimes we're sure there's no reason to try. When the whole world goes completely insane, open your heart, stand up and sing. I'm gonna finger bang my day. Yeah, yeah, I'll finger bang my day. That's right. You gotta make the choice to give it all you've got and make your day long with pleasure, really make it hot, because your day deserves a lover that pulls out the stops. Come on, it's not so hard, 'cause sometimes we hurt, sometimes we cry, sometimes we're sure there's no reason to try.
what are we really doing? We can't live in a world that has this much hate. We have to get honest with ourselves. We have to take stock in what our part is in all of this madness. We have to let go. And we focus on giving love, setting that intention. And each and every single one of us gets up every day with the intention to give love. And we do it. We go out there and we give love every single day. Each one of us gets out there and makes love to our day. Giving our day a multiple orgasm. The whole world will be orgasmic for the rest of eternity. Sometimes we hurt, sometimes we cry, sometimes we should. There's no reason to try when the whole world is fucking insane. We open our hearts, stand up and sing. I'm gonna finger bang my day. Finger bang my day. Finger bang my day. Let's open our hearts, stand up and sing. I'm gonna finger bang my day. Yeah, yeah. Finger bang my day. Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? Let me take you far away from all this huff and puff. There will be nothing in between our love, like a pair of doves flying high above, where nothing can touch us, touching softly. Don't let me go, I won't let you go. This is eternity with me, baby. Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? You don't have to be alone. Come with me. Magic, healthy laughter, boundaries, space, ongoing mutual consent, passion, happily we'll be bearing our souls, naked by the sea. We'll breathe the clean air. We'll be living, laughing, loving forever. Baby, do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? Do you wanna go for a ride in my consensual sex van? You don't have to be alone anymore. We will be together forever in love. Do you wanna go for a ride? Do you wanna go in my consensual? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Just get in the van.
with nothing to offer. No one will ever believe you. They see you for what you are. You're just a fraud, a shell of a person. And now the power of the spirit of penetrate the demons that love you. They enslave you into the depths of hate. I am the son of
I got more than moves, got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head long, never gonna cut it.
All these hookers sweet on me. Look at them chasing me, showing me that ass. And I bagged up to snatch. I do this shit for free. Go down your mom, tell 3. She's taking selfies with the mullet like it's history. How can I maneuver you with that pussy, dude? You sit like Buddha waiting on it to come to you. My lines are straight to the point. She shows me gratitude. So what's your latitude? Let's adjust your attitude. Hit up with a alligator, double dually Lamborghini. All up in a silly little yellow polka dot bikini.
I got more than moves, I got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that.
Hit up with a alligator, double dually Lamborghini. All up in a silly little yellow polka dot bikini.
Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head long, never gonna cut it.
Alligator, double dually Lamborghini. All up in a silly little yellow polka dot bikini. You're like the butt of a butter knife cutting up panini. So climb back in your kangaroo pouch like a rolling genie. These moves are hot, these locks I got. This power cannot be disputed and it can't be bought. So you can find me in the studio with all these thoughts. You wanna bite my style, but you can't be what you're not, neighbor.
I got more than moves, I got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head long, never gonna cut it.
Got that motherfucking ballin'. You wanna touch it?
Yeah. Next time you come around here with your bitch ass, just remember how my mullet makes your hose pussy drip, drip, drip.
I got more than moves, I got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head long, never gonna cut it. I got more than moves, I got that molar too. You think it's wrong? Back of the head too long. Fuck that. Check these molar moves. You need a molar too. I can do no wrong. Back of the head long, never gonna cut it. Never gonna cut it. Never gonna cut it.
Drip, drip,
Molar moves.
just a mullet, bitch.
Molar moves.
Drip, drip.
Molar moves. Never gonna cut it.
I just got a package. I can't wait to get home. I spent all day tracking the shipment on my phone. All that she was lacking, I ordered custom. I can't wait to get some. Take it to the bedroom. Bitch is always nagging. Now I got the air. I send this bitch is packing. Going my way. I have a new attraction. Don't care what you say. It's better in every way. Now baby, it's time to play. We're gonna make us a tape and show everyone the way. Cause I'm going riding up Silicon Way.
'cause I'm calling my way, riding up Silicon Way. I see on the game with my new real dog. I'm gonna play just second grade to Mount Silicon Way. She is here to stay. She's my new real dog, and it's time to play. With my new real dog, I'm gonna play. She's my new real dog, and it's time to play.
The woman of my dreams.
Voulez-vous coucher avec moi?
Fais-moi l'amour.
Je suis amoureux.
Je pense toujours à
Enchanté,
tous les gens,
ma chérie. Mon
Tous les
frère
gens.
dans une hostie.
tous
Ils étaient le nipple.
les gens. Fais-moi like living on a super yacht, making love to a robot. It's like owning a football team, but having sex with a robot. It's like winning an Oscar and Emmy a Grammy when you're fucking a robot. It's like saving a family with a newborn from a fire, but you're fucking a robot. I'm calling my way, riding up Silicon Way. I see on the game with my new real dog. I'm gonna play just second grade to Mount Silicon Way. She is here to stay. She's my new real dog, and it's time to play.
Welcome back, Wapham crew. That was Jeff Hilliard from Los Angeles, California. If you're interested by his music, you can check him out on Apple Music, and he's also got some very interesting and very good videos on YouTube if you want to check that out. He's won lots of awards for it, and I don't know, he kind of reminds me of kind of like a mix between Dr. Demento and Weird Al Yankovic, but he's Jeff Hilliard. He is who he is, and he's amazing. Yeah, check him out. Let me just make sure the sound is bumping everywhere. Yep, we're good to go. Good to go. Chapter 4. Moreno had left the heavy door to his station ajar. I let myself in, and the door closed behind me, the lock sliding home. I found myself standing in a dimly lit foyer. To the right of a set of elevator doors, a sign indicated Hayspell, A-SPL, with an arrow pointing down towards some metal stairs on the right. I went down, my rubber-soled shoes making hollow sounds on the metal treads. Below, the reception area was deserted. The walls in the narrow hallway beyond painted a dreary shade of blue and a strange algae green, like the bottom of a pond. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. Jazz was being piped in. Obviously, the station was playing back on itself. Hello? I shrugged to myself and moved down the corridor, glancing into each cubicle as I passed. Moreno had told me he'd be working in the third studio on the right, but when I reached it, the room was empty. I could still hear faint strains of jazz coming in over the speakers, but he'd apparently absented himself momentarily. The studio was small, littered with empty fast food containers and empty soda cans. The half-filled coffee cup on the console was warm to the touch. There was a wall clock the size of a full moon, its second hand ticking jerkily as it made the big sweep. Click, 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 click. The passage of time had never seemed quite so concrete or so relentless. The walls were soundproofed with sections of corrugated dark gray foam. I'm kind of wondering, did he go for a smoke break or something? Hello, Sister Sandra. Did he go for a smoke break or something and then something happened to him? I don't know. Let's read and see. To my left, countless cartoons and news clippings were tacked to a corkboard. The balance of the wall space was taken up with a row after row of CDs, with additional shelves devoted to albums and tape cassettes. I did a visual survey as if in preparation for a game of concentration. Coffee mugs, speakers, a stapler, Scotch tape dispenser, many empty designer water bottles, Evian, Sweet Mountain, and Perrier. On the control board, I could see the mic switch, heart machines, a rainbow of lights. One marked 2-track mono. One light flashed green, and another was blinking red. A microphone suspended from a boom looked like a big snow cone of gray foam. I pictured myself leaning close enough to touch my lips to the surface, using my most seductive FM tone of voice. Hello, all you night owls. This is Kinsey Milhome here, bringing you the best in jazz at the very worst of hours. Behind me, I heard someone thumping down the hall in my direction, and I peered out with interest. Hector Moreno approached, a man in his early 50s, supported by 2 crutches. Oh man. His shaggy hair was gray, his brown eyes as soft as dark caramels. His upper body was immense, his torso dwindling, away to the legs that were stick-like and truncated. He wore a bulky black cotton sweater, chinos, and penny loafers. Beside him was a big reddish-yellow dog with a thick head, heavy chest, and powerful shoulders, probably part chow, judging by the teddy bear face and the ruff of the hair around its neck. Hi, are you Hector? Kinsey Milhome, I said. The dog bristled visibly when I held up my hand. Hector Moreno propped himself on one crutch long enough to shake my hand. Nice to meet you, he said. This is Beauty. She'll need time to make up her mind about you. Fair enough, I said. She could take the rest of her life as far as I was concerned. The dog had begun to rumble. Not a growl, but a low as if a machine had been activated somewhere deep in her chest. Hector snapped his fingers, and she went silent. Dogs and I have never been that fond of one another. Just a week ago, I'd been introduced to Boy Pup, who'd actually lifted his leg and piddled on my shoe. His owner had voiced his most vigorous disapproval, but he really didn't sound that sincere to me, and I suspected he was concurrently recounting, with snorts and guffaws, the tale of Bowser's misbehavior on my footwear. In the meantime, I had a Reebok that smelled like dog whiz, a fact not lost on Beauty, who gave it her rapt attention. Hector swung himself forward and moved into the studio, answering the question I was too polite to ask. I collided with a rock pile when I was 12. I was spelunking in Kentucky, and the tunnel caved in. People expect something different judging from my voice on the air. Grab a seat. He flashed me a smile, and I smiled in response. I followed as he set his crutches aside and hoisted himself onto a stool. I found a second stool in the corner and pulled it close to him. I noticed that Beauty arranged herself so that she was between us. While Hector and I exchanged pleasantries, the dog watched us with an air of nearly human intelligence, her gaze shifting constantly from his face to mine. Sometimes she panted with an expression close to a grin, dangling tongue dancing, as if at some private joke. Her ears shifted as we spoke, gauging our tones. I had no doubt she was prepared to intervene if she didn't like what she heard. From time to time, in response to cues I wasn't picking up myself, She would retract her tongue and close her mouth, rising to her feet with that low rumble in her chest. All it took was a gesture from him, and she dropped to the floor again. But her look then was brooding. She probably had a tendency to sulk when she wasn't allowed to feast on human flesh. Hector, ever watchful, seemed amused at the performance. He doesn't trust many people. I got her from the pound, but she must have been beaten when she was young. You keep her with you all the time? I asked. Yeah, she's good company. I work late nights, and when I leave the studio, the town is deserted, so... Except for the crazies. They're always out. You asked about Lorna. What was your connection? Well, I'm a private investigator, and Lorna's mother stopped by my office earlier this evening and asked if I'd look into her death. She wasn't particularly happy with the police investigation. Such as it was, he said. Did you talk to that guy Phillips? What a prick he was. I just talked to him. He's out of homicide and onto vice these days. What did he do to you? He didn't do anything. It's his attitude. I hate guys like him. Little banny roosters who push their weight around. Hang on a sec. He slid a fat cassette into a slot and depressed a button on the soundboard. Leaning forward, his voice as smooth as a satiny as fudge. We've been listening to a Phineas Newborn on solo piano, playing a song called The Midnight Sun Will Never Set. And this is Hector Moreno, casting a little magic here at K-Spell. Coming up, we have 30 minutes of uninterrupted music, featuring the incomparable voice of Johnny Hartman from the legendary session with John Coltrane Quartet. Esquire magazine once named this greatest album ever made. It was recorded March 7th, 1963, on the Impulse label with John Coltrane on tenor sax, McCoy Tyner on piano, Jimmy Garrison on bass, and Elvin Jones on drums. He punched a button, adjusted the studio volume downward, and turned back to me. So whatever he said about Lorna, you can take it with a grain of salt. He said she had a dark side, but I knew that much. I'm not sure I have the overall picture, but I'm working on that. How long had you known her before she died? A little over 2 years. Right after I started doing the show, I was in Seattle before that, but the damp got to me. I heard about this job through a friend of a friend. Is your broadcast background in broadcast? Communications, he said. Radio and TV production. Video on some extent, though it never interested me much. I'm from Cincinnati originally, graduated from the university, but I've worked everywhere. Okay, so that's funny to me, because I used to watch WKPN or something like that in Cincinnati. I remember that show. Also Star Trek and Scooby-Doo and other stuff like that, but yeah, that was a radio station show. I really liked that. Anyway, I met Lorna when I first got down here. She was a night owl by nature, and she started calling in requests. Between cuts and commercials, we'd sometimes talk for an hour. She began to drop by the studio, maybe once a week at first. Toward the end, she was here just about every night. 2:33, she'd bring donuts and coffee. Bones for beauty if she'd been out to dinner. Sometimes I think it was the dog she cared about. They had some kind of psychic affinity. Lorna used to claim that they'd been lovers in another life. Beauty's still waiting for her to come back. 3 o'clock, she goes out to the stairs and just stands there, looking up. Makes this little sound in her throat that'd break your heart. It's breaking my heart right now, damn it. He shook his head, waving off the image of curious impatience. What was Lorna like? Complicated. I thought she was a beautiful, tortured soul. Restless, disconnected, probably depressed, but that was just one part. She was split, like a contradiction. It wasn't all the dark stuff. Was she into drugs or alcohol? Not as far as I know. She blew hot and cold. She was nearly hyper sometimes. If you want to get analytical, I'd be tempted to label her manic depressive, but that doesn't really capture it. It was like a battle she fought, and the downside finally won. I guess we all have that in us, huh? I do, that's for sure. I knew she did porno film. Did you? I heard about that. I never saw it myself, but I guess the word was out. When was it shot? Any time close to her death? I don't know much about that. She was out of town a lot on weekends, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Could have been one of those trips. I really couldn't say for sure. So it was not something that she discussed? He shook his head. She enjoyed being tight-lipped. I think it made her feel powerful. I learned not to pry into her personal affairs. Any idea why she did the film? Was it money? I doubt it. Producer probably cleans up. The actors get a flat rate, at least from what I've heard, he said. Maybe she did it for the same reason she did anything. Lorna flirted with disaster every day of her life. If you want my theory, fear was the only real sensation that she felt. Danger was like a drug. She had to boost the dose. She couldn't help herself. Didn't seem to matter what anyone said. I used to talk till I was blue in the face. It never made any difference as far as I could see. This is just my observation, and I could be all wrong, but you asked and I'm answering. She'd act like she was listening. She'd act like she agreed with every word that you said, but then it was washed over, right over her head. She went right on doing it, whatever it was. She was like an addict, a junkie. She knew that life wasn't good, but she couldn't make the break. Did she trust you? I wouldn't say that, not really. Lorna didn't trust anyone. She was like Beauty in that respect. She might have trusted me more than most. Why was that? I never came on to her, so I wasn't any kind of threat. With no sexual investment, she couldn't lose with me, so she also couldn't win. But that suited us both. With Lorna, you had to keep your distance. She was the kind of woman, the minute you got involved, it was over, pal. That was the end of it. The only way you could hold on to her was to keep her at arm's length. I knew the rule, but I couldn't always manage it. I was hooked myself. I kept wanting to save her, and it couldn't be done. Did she tell you what was going on in her life? Some things, trivia for the most part, just the day-to-day stuff. She never confided anything important. Events but not feelings, you know what I mean. Even then, I doubt she really leveled with me. I knew some things, but not always because she told me. How'd you get your information? I have buddies around town. I'd get frustrated with her behavior. She'd swear she was playing straight, but I guess she really couldn't give it up. Next thing you know, she'd be picking up guys, twosomes, threesomes, anything you want. People would see her and make a point of telling me, worried I was getting in over my head. And were you? His smile was bitter. I didn't think so at the time. Did the rumors bother you? Hell yes. What she did was dangerous, and I was worried sick. I didn't like what she was doing, and I didn't like people running in here talking about her behind her back. Telltales, I hate that shit. I couldn't get them to quit. With her, I tried to keep my mouth shut. It was none of my business, but I kept getting sucked in. I'd be saying, "Why, babe? What's the point?" And she'd shake her head. "You don't want to know. Heck, I promise. It's got nothing to do with you." The truth is, I don't think she knew. It was a compulsion like a sneeze. It felt good to do it. If she held off, something tickled until it drove her nuts. You have any idea who was in her life besides you? I wasn't in her life. I was on the fringe, way out here. She had a day job, part-time at the water treatment plant. You might talk to them, see if they can fill you in. Most times I never saw her before 3 a.m. She might have had some other kind of life entirely when the sun was up. Well, food for thought, I said. Anything else I should know? Not that I can think of offhand. If something occurs to me, I can get in touch with you. Do you have a card? I finished one out and placed it on the console. He looked at it briefly and left it where it was. I said, "Thanks for your time. I hope I've been of help. I hate the idea someone got away with murder." This is a start at any rate. I may be back at some point. I hesitated, glancing at the dog, still lying there between us. The minute she sensed my look, she rose to her feet, which put her head just above the level of the stool where I was perched. She kept her eyes straight ahead, gazing intently at the flesh on my hip, possibly with an eye toward a late evening snack. Num num. "Beauty," he murmured, with scarcely any change of tone. She sank to the floor, but I could tell she was still thinking about a jawful of gluteus maximus. "Next time, I'll bring her a bone," I said. "Preferably not mine." I headed home through the business district, following a trail of stoplights that winked from red to green. The storefronts had been secured, plate glass windows ablaze with fluorescent lighting. The streets were bleached white with the spill of illumination. I passed a lone man on a bike dressed in black. Didn't she see that guy earlier? What the heck? It was almost 1:30 a.m. Traffic minimal. Intersections wide and deserted. Most of the bars in town were still open, and in another half hour or so, all the drunks would emerge, heading for the various downtown parking structures. Many buildings were dark. The homeless, bundled in sleep, blocked doorways like toppled statues. For them, the night is like a vast hotel where there's always a room available. The only price they pay sometimes is their lives. At 1:45, I finally stripped off my jeans, brushed my teeth, and doused the lights, crawling into bed without bothering to remove my t-shirt, underpants, and socks. I actually did that last night. These February nights were too cold to sleep naked. As I eased toward unconsciousness, I found myself mentally replaying select portions of Lorna's tape. The life of a single woman in a world ruled by sexually transmitted diseases. I lay there, trying to think back to when I last had sex. I couldn't even remember, which was really worrisome. Fell asleep wondering if there was a cause and effect relationship between memory loss and abstinence. Goodness. Apparently so, as that was the last thing I was aware of for the next 4 hours. When the alarm went off at 6 a.m., I rolled out of bed before the resistance came up. I pulled on my sweats and my running shoes, then headed into the bathroom, where I brushed my teeth, avoided the sight of myself in the mirror. One ill-advised glance had revealed a face fat with sleep and hair as stiff and matted as a derelict's. I'd snipped it off 6 months before with a trusty little pair of nail scissors, but I hadn't done much to it since. Now the sections that weren't sticking straight up were either flat or adrift. I was really going to have to do something about it one of these days. Given the 4 hours of sleep, my run was a bit on the perfunctory side. Often I tune in to look of the beach, letting seabirds and kelp scent carry me along. Jogging becomes a meditation, lifting time into high gear. This was one of those days when exercise simply failed to uplift. In lieu of euphoria, I had to make my peace with 300 calories worth of sweat, screaming thighs, and burning lungs. I tacked on an extra mile to atone for the indifference, and then did a fast walk an extra half-mile. Back to my place as a way of cooling down. I showered and slipped into fresh jeans and a black turtleneck, over which I pulled a heavy gray cotton sweater. I perched on a wooden stool at the kitchen table and ate a bowl of cereal. I scanned the local paper in haste. No surprises there. While floods threatened the Midwest, the Santa Teresa rainfall averages were down, and there was already speculation of another drought in the making. January and February were usually rainy, but the weather had been capricious. Storms approached the coast and then hovered, as if flirting, refusing us the wet kiss of precipitation. High-pressure systems held all the rains at bay. The skies clouded over, brooding but yielding nothing in the end. It was frustrating stuff. Turning to happier times, I read that one of the big oil companies was talking about building a new refinery somewhere on the south coast. That would be a handsome addition to the local landscape. A bank robbery, a conflict between land developers and opposing members of the county board of supervisors. I scanned the funnies while I sucked down my coffee and then headed into the office, where I spent the next several hours assembling the balance of my tax receipts. Obnoxious. Having finished, I pulled out a standard boilerplate contract and typed in the details of my agreement with the Keplers. I spent the bulk of the day finishing the final report on a case I'd just done. The closing bill with expenses was something over $2,000. It wasn't much, but it kept the rent paid and my insurance intact. At 5, I put a call through to Janice, figuring she'd be up by then. Trini, the younger of the two daughters, answered the phone. She wasn't a chatty little thing. When I identified myself, she said her mother's alarm was set to go off any minute. Berlin was making the run to the bank, and her father was on his way home from a job. That took care of just about everyone. Janice has given me the address, but Trini filled in directions, sounding pleasant enough. I retrieved my car from the public lot several blocks away. A steady stream of moving cars spiraled down the ramp as shoppers and office workers headed home. As I drove up Capillo Hill, the very air smelled gray. Swayed with twilight, street lights flicked on like a series of paper lanterns, strung festively from pole to pole. Janice and Mace Kepler owned a little house on the bluffs in a neighborhood that must have been established for merchants and tradesmen in the early 50s. Many streets overlooked the Pacific, and in theory, the area should have been like a really pricey real estate. In reality, there was too much fog. Painted exteriors peeled, aluminum surfaces became pitted, and wooden roof shingles warped from the constant damp. Wind whistled off the ocean, forcing lawns into patchiness. The neighborhoods themselves were comprised almost entirely of tract housing, single-family dwellings thrown up in an era when construction was cheap and the floor plans could be purchased by mail from magazines. The Keplers had apparently done what they could. The yellow paint on the board and batten siding looked as if it had been applied within a year. The shutters were white, and a white split-rail fence had been constructed to define the yard. The lawn... Oh my gosh, am I muted? I was muted. Oh my goodness. The lawn had been replaced by dense ivy, which seemed to be growing everywhere, including halfway up the two trees in the yard. In the driveway, there was a pale blue panel truck, emblemized with a large cartoon replica of a faucet. A big teardrop of water hung from the spout. Mace Kepler's Plumbing, Heating, Air was lettered in white across the truck body. A small oblong emblem indicated that Kepler was a member of PHCC, the National Association of Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling Contractors. The state license number was listed along with the 24-hour emergency repairs he provided. Water leaks, sewer drains, gas leaks, and water heaters. And the credit cards he took, these days, doctors don't offer services that are comprehensive. I pulled into the gravel driveway and parked my vehicle behind his. I left the car unlocked and peered briefly into the backyard before I climbed the low concrete steps to the front porch. Somebody in the family had a passion for fruit trees. A veritable orchard of citrus had been planted at the rear of the lot. At this season, all the branches were bare, but come summer, the dark green foliage would be lush and dense, fruit tucked among the leaves like Christmas ornaments. I rang the bell. There was muddy work shoes by the doormat. There was only a brief pause before Mace Kepler opened the door. I had to guess he'd been alerted to watch for my arrival. Given my incurable inclination to snoop, I was happy I hadn't paused to rifle through his mailbox. We introduced ourselves, and he stepped back to admit me. Even in his leather bedroom slippers, he was probably 6'4" to my 5'6". He wore a plaid shirt and work pants. He was in his 60s, quite hefty, with a broad face and receding hairline. His deeply cleft chin seemed to have a period buried in its center, and a vertical worry line, like a slash mark, bisected the space between his eyes. On residential jobs, he probably hired younger, smaller guys to navigate the crawl space underneath the house. Janice is in the shower, but she'll be right out. Can I offer you a beer? I'm having one myself. I just got home from a hell of a day. No thanks, I said. I hope I haven't picked a bad time. I waited by the door while he lumbered toward the kitchen and fetched himself a beer. Don't worry about it. This is fine, he said. I just haven't had a chance to unwind yet. This is my daughter, Trini. Trini glanced up with a brief smile and then went about her work, pouring a cocoa brown batter into a 9x13 aluminum cake pan. The hand mixer, its beaters still dripping brown goo, sat on the kitchen counter beside an open box of Duncan Hines chocolate cake. Trini tucked the pan in the oven and set a timer shaped like a lemon. She'd already opened a cardboard container of ready-mix fudge frosting. What? And I'd have bet money she'd helped herself to a fingerful, or 3. While my aunt had never really taught me to bake, she'd warned me repeatedly about the ignominy of the commercial cake mix, which she ranked right up there with instant coffee and bottled garlic. Trini was barefoot, wearing an oversized white t-shirt and a pair of ragged blue jean cutoffs. Judging from the size of her butt, she conjured up quite a few homemade cakes in her day. Mace opened the refrigerator door and took a beer out. He found the flip in a drawer and levered off the cap, tossing the bottle top in a brown paper trash bag as he passed it. Trini and I murmured hi to one another. Berlin, the older daughter, emerged from the hallway wearing a pair of black tights with a man's white broadcloth dress shirt over them. Again, Mace introduced us, and we exchanged inconsequential greetings of the "Hi, how are you?" type. She was intent on rolling up her sleeves as she crossed into the open kitchen. She paused beside Trini and held her arm out for assistance. Trini wiped her hands and began to roll up Berlin's sleeves. At first glance, they were sufficiently similar to be mistaken for twins. They seemed to favor their father, both big girls and buxom with heavy legs and thighs. Berlin was a dyed blonde with big blue eyes framed in dark lashes. She had a clear pale complexion and a lush mouthful of vibrant white glossy pink lipstick. Trini had opted for her natural hair, a double fudge brown, probably the shade of Berlin in what she was born with. Both had bright blue eyes and dark brows. Berlin's features were the coarser, or perhaps it was the bleached hair that gave her the appearance of cartishness. Without Lorna's delicate beauty and the family of contrast, I would have said that they were pretty in a slightly vulgar way. Even knowing what I knew about Lorna's promiscuity, She seemed to have a classiness about her that the other two lacked. Berlin moved over to the refrigerator and pulled out a Diet Pepsi. She popped the tab and ambled out the door onto a wooden deck that ran along the back of the house. Through the window, I watched as she settled on a chaise made of interwoven plastic strips. It seemed too chilly to be sitting out there. Her eyes caught mine briefly before she looked away. Beer in hand, Mace moved through the kitchen toward the den, indicating that I was to follow. As he closed the door behind us, I picked up the chemical scent of a baking chocolate cake. I still can't believe, I was muted this time. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. But we are going to go to our music break right now. We have Mr. Jeff Hilliard with his 80s sort of ballad. I really like the song. It's called Abandon. Then we have Miss Mia Savage with her group Antidote for Savages with Lemurian Crypto, your skeleton in the bottom line. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this.
Left here alone, just a shadow of my erection on the wall. Why won't you answer my calls? I gave you my
read my crypto? Take me to your leader or leave me alone. Somebody please take me out. Rest of time. Breathing in the water.
try to tell us that there was, and let the demons run amok.
But it doesn't matter, because it's just a ride, and we can change it anytime we want.
It's all we need, the choice. No record, no work, no job, no savings or nothing.
Just a choice right now between fear and love. Choice right now between fear and love.
super freaking weird. Again, I have to apologize to my Spreaker peeps because once again, I'm freaking muted and I can't believe it because that's my number one place, but here I am muted there again. But anyways, this week has been super weird. There's been Easter, there's been different happenings, and now we're looking toward this solar eclipse. So I've heard a lot about that, and also just today, me and my youngest daughter were listening to the radio and they were talking about a freaking planet heading towards our planet. Oh my gosh. Nathan is saying deep meditation and grounding before the eclipse too. Indeed. Super true. Like, take off your shoes, walk in the dirt, go plant something, build a chicken coop, have fun with some chickens. I don't know. There's a lot to do. Yeah, they're saying there's this solar eclipse. And then supposedly there's also a planet that is heading right towards us. And I'm like, could it be like it's been for the past how many years? Nibiru? Is it moving towards us? It's kind of like on Star Wars. It was a Death Star. Not a planet, but a Death Star. Is this actually going to fly towards us and then hit us and kill us all? Or is it going to fly towards us and stop and then communicate with us? Hard to say, but it just came up again today. So let me know in the chat what you think, because to me, I'm very intrigued. This to me is pretty outstanding. Outstanding in my field. Sorry, I just had to check to make sure that I was still broadcasting, but yes, I am. And like I said again, I'm sorry, Spreaker people. I won't do it again next week. Oh my gosh. Hopefully tomorrow isn't full of crazies. Could you imagine being in the path where hundreds of thousands of millions and it's going to be complete darkness and the National Guard is called and different things are happening, and does this really make sense? I'm not quite sure. I'm kind of confused. So if you know anything, let me know. My sister at the moment is in prison. And she's like, yeah, we had this plan. We have these glasses because we have welding class, etc. We were going to put those on. We were going to go out and we were going to check it out. And we can't because they're locking us down. And I told her, like, not only are they locking down prisons, but schools are being canceled. And like I said just a moment ago, the National Guard is being called in. Why the heck would you need this? And they were saying, like, buy extra food, do this, do that, blah, 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 which makes sense if you're in that area because it's going to be pretty taxing or tolling on the amount of food that's available. So stock up before that happens. But even here, like, is this going to spread? What the heck is going to happen? I don't even fracking know. Oh my gosh. I have a video that I want to share with you guys. Yep. I'm going to have people hate me just in the next room, but it's, I believe it's a lunar eclipse sort of video. I thought it was. Let me look really quick just to make sure. Come back. It's not finished. And I have to. Oh, wow. 5 horrifying live streams. Yes, that's something else. That's not anything to do with lunar eclipse. I have several videos to share, but I'm not. The ancient aliens ones. Extraterrestrial secrets in Earth's depths. Maybe this is the one I'm thinking about. I don't know. I guess we gotta see. Trying to find the pause button. There we go. There we go. All right. So I just want to thank those of you that held on there. I think my Twitch feller or whoever is listening over there got with a lot of shit because even my kids came in. They're like, Mom, we can't hear you. Luckily, they told me because nobody else told me that they couldn't hear me. Yeah. Excuse you. Bless you. Any years. I think I need to use this one in order to do the video. Holy shnikes. I think I messed up again. Just leave it to me. Leave it to the beef. Anyways. Present. Share screen. www.weareparadoxmedia.com. You ready? You want to talk about? Right here? Here we go.
Heads and broken pillars with 1900-year-old Mayan inscriptions.
Sorry. I was a bit into it.
A temple
I must
of the
admit.
dead in the Yucatan. An underground city in Turkey. And a South American cave said to contain a treasure from beyond the stars.
And the road to hell and Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico?
For centuries,
What is that?
people have told tales of caves and tunnels deep inside the earth. Subterranean passageways that lead to lands of gods and monsters. But is there a surprising truth behind these legends?
I think so.
I have stood in front of drawings on the rocks and wondered, am I looking at the extraterrestrial biological
Oh my
entity?
gosh. I have to
Could
share those
there
pics
really
of
be mysterious
petroglyphs
places far
from
beneath our feet? Places
Colorado,
whose origins
the Four
might
Corners
not be
area.
of this earth.
It's intense.
There were certain aspects of the cave
There's Bigfoot, there's
for which
aliens,
geology
there's
could
so
not
many
provide
different
an
things.
answer.
Could not provide an
Millions of
answer.
people around the world believe we have been visited in the past by extraterrestrial beings.
Are we
What
the
if it were
extraterrestrial
true?
beings?
Did ancient aliens really help to shape our history? And if so, should we be looking for proof of their existence not in the heavens above, but in mysterious worlds deep beneath the surface?
My friends are scared about the lunar eclipse tomorrow, so let me put a pause on this really quick. Underground aliens. Alright. Guys, gals, girls, whoever's listening right now. My friends over in the Central Plains, Texas, Arkansas, Kentucky, wherever the crack this eclipse is going to happen, people are afraid. And my sister, she's like, yep, we had a plan. We had classes. We were going to do this. We had welders' hats and welders' glasses. And we were going to check this out. But guess what? They can't because the prison is locking them down. Schools are being closed and canceled. Shit is just not fucking making sense. Let me put this down to this point and do my outro. I want to thank everyone tonight for tuning into We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Thank you so much. It was amazing having you. And a pleasure, I must say. Thank you to all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies on Facebook, KPML Radio, eTalk Radio, Twitter, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and wherever else you may be listening tonight. I had a wonderful time, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend. If you guys are in the brunt of the solar eclipse, hang on to your hats, babies, because, well, you know, I'm kind of creeped out about it, too. What the heck are we supposed to do with this? Anywho's, Just be calm, take deep breaths, stay calm, because this could be just like 2000, 2012, all the different times when they said shit was gonna hit the fan and it didn't. This could be just like that. But anywho's, night-night, love and light to all my yous out there. I love and appreciate you. And you know what? We gotta take care of each other. So until next time, nighty-night, love and light. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Please don't work too hard. And I will see you back here. Same crazy time, same crazy place.